Some read-onlys, and then Matt, I think you've got the first one.
Yeah, just I don't know if there's any actions here. So 14.0, I think the engineering work should be done. We had to end a little bit early this month because it's such a big milestone. So people are wrapping everything up there. I think there might be a small chance to get some engineering stuff in, but not guaranteed. But then anything that's left in 14.0, we're going to have to move to 14.1. I've done most of the, at least backend stuff. I haven't really looked at the front end work, but there's a couple of issues still in review that I have to follow up on. And then, yeah, just going to start working on 14.1. So my question, kind of leading question for Kai is about make sure the focus is still on the large MR OKR.
Yeah, I think 14.1 is sort of the last full milestone, I believe, that we get in the quarter. So we have not made much progress on the OKR to date. So yeah, we need to figure out what we're going to do in 14.1, and then hopefully we'll get some new measurements in at some point.
Yeah, and sorry for jumping on your question, Kai, and saying yes. I'm glad you agree. Because my biggest question right now, I noticed that I think it was Patrick that created a bunch of issues for the caching investigation. Do we have capacity for some of those at least? Because those could probably help the numbers get better even.
I think so. Kai and I are going to meet later today to kind of go through it. Right now, the backend capacity is basically double what we actually have, or what is in 14.1. The weights is double what our capacity is. So, so we're going to have to start moving at least half of those out.
Okay.
But I'm hoping, I mean, kind of why I asked this too is I assume this is the focus. So anything related to that, like the caching stuff, would probably take top priority.
Yeah, I think they can definitely help. And given I have an update later, but we're going to be focusing heavily on memory usage. And if the backend can help on the timing of the requests, I think we'd have 2 threads going on to improve the whole situation. So yeah, that'll be nice. All right. Any more thoughts? Okay. So my next point is kind of preparing for 14.1 as well. In the last retro, we had a discussion about the kind of a gap between assignments, and we kind of like boiled it down to the assignments between backend and front end. We boiled it down as a side effect of Kanban probably. And since we have an upcoming milestone coming up, I wanted to check. It seems like you're planning on having a retro specific about Kanban, but do you have any thoughts for 14.1? How should we handle that to make sure that if we do have some backend and front end issues, how can we ensure they're tackled timely? Because like Kai was saying, I feel like 14.1 is going to be a very decisive milestone for the OKR. So I want to make sure that we're ready and line up.
Yeah. Yeah, we started the retro for Kanban specific. I'll put the link in here. It's actually I think the 4th one we've done about the Kanban process. So it's mixed feelings. Nobody, I don't know, I'll let it play out a little bit more. But yeah, that was one of the big concerns is that I think when we planned 14.0, those issues that had the front end back end dependencies were placed pretty high, but nobody picked them up right away. Like they were prioritized high, so they should have been the first ones that were taken. So that, I don't know if the process broke down a little bit. We also had
it gets vulnerable by how many slippage we have.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So
and the thing is, in some of the issues, we don't expect people to start working on them right away. But having an initial conversation, like a 30-minute conversation, sometimes proves very fruitful so that the front end can get started while the back end hasn't started yet.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the themes from Kanban Retro number 3 was that people kind of liked having that, just in general, knowing what they're going to be working on for the whole milestone, because then they can kind of plan their month as well. And yeah, like you said, a lot of things slipped into 14.0. So people are already assigned to work, or they're already working on things that maybe weren't those top priority new things. I think what I would like to do is, when we identify any for 14.1, identify any that have those dependencies, we'll just make sure they're assigned right away. And then
I'll keep it on from our side. If I don't see an assignment, I'll be more actively nagging.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Please do. You can nag me as much as you want. That sounds like a good plan.
Thanks, Matt. That works for me. Thanks for the link for the Kanban.
I'll type up my notes in here too.
I would love to know how we recognize these mixed issues. Are the ones that have like front-end and back-end labels? Is that
correct? Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So next one, I wanted to provide a bit of an update on what we're thinking for 14.1 and the state of virtual scrolling. And Pedro has been helping Phil review the fixes, and he's been providing very useful feedback on the effects of the virtual scrolling, some side effects, and some of them are pretty obviously code that is broken. Others are still just an effect of the library re-putting things on the page. And the slower and more work it has to do, the more perceivable it is that the element wasn't actually there. It just got placed when I scrolled, right? So there's a little bit of a sleight of hand we have to play there, in a bit of a race between the user scrolling and the browser putting the components back in. So we're having some really low level front end discussions about what we can do to the code base so that we can make that faster. They all boil down to memory usage being lower and less work to do when putting things back on the page. Less components, maybe having some sections that are not placed there at all. So we're exploring some options and they will materialize into issues before the start of the milestone. So that's what I'm hoping to have ready by our conversation tomorrow, Kai, so that we have a concrete plan. There might be one or two issues that are specific on the intent, broad on the actual code being changed, because we'll comb the code base for components that need this approach, but we're trying to go at it with some specificity rather than something very vague. So yeah, our biggest effort here for the 14.1 will be exclusively for memory and component complexity. Your question? Okay.
Yeah, I guess my question is this worth continuing to go down the path of like trying to get the virtual scrolling stuff to work, or would the milestone be better spent looking at other performance opportunities, right? There's a cost to having Phil and or other people spend a milestone sort of fixing something that we don't even know if it'll get there versus maybe if there's more concrete things. I think we all thought this would be like the biggest win, but it's clearly going to be a lot more work. So
it's a fantastic question, Kai, that I welcome, accept, and I've asked myself. We just had a chat, me and Phil, today about this, and he's trying to avoid having to rewrite the whole library because that would be a big of an effort. But looking at the numbers, we do see some really good benefits that justify the pain. The way that I end up justifying it even further is that the benefits we'll be looking at in the terms of memory usage and complexity of components will benefit our end goal regardless of whether we use virtual scrolling. So in the end, the other threads we would be exploring would be decrease memory usage and make the page lighter to render, which is what we're going to be looking to basically make the work that the virtual scrolling has to do lighter, which is the work that the browser would have to do if there wasn't virtual scrolling at all. So we will be doing something not specifically for virtual scrolling, which kind of like is already a parallel effort. but it will end up being supportive of that if we do end up enabling it. We do feel confident that we will be able to enable it. But again, as we uncover more bugs and quirks, the time of enabling that feature flag is slipping away from under our feet a little bit. And we are cognizant that it might prove to be later than we expect. So we're trying to do our best to get to the point where we can enable it. But regardless of that, these improvements will be shipped in parallel, and from what I understand, they won't be behind the feature flag of the virtual scrolling. So they will be benefiting the page immediately, which is part of the problem of the lack of progress on the OKR. Of that, we're doing a lot of work, but a lot of it isn't being felt by the users, and we really are worried, but aware of it too. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we're thinking through it completely. So
absolutely. Okay, I'll keep you posted, and by tomorrow I hope to have a more specific picture of this. Is tomorrow okay for your timing to do the video? Are you doing the video at all, or are we just focusing on performance generically?
Tomorrow's fine. I think I scheduled a call for you and I to go through planning. I don't know if I'm going to do a kickoff video.
Okay.
I have a head cold, and I don't really like talking right now.
Okay.
And also,
sorry to hear that.
We're doing performance work, and so I'm not sure we need a kickoff video. So we'll see.
Okay, if you need us to fill in for you, I'll be happy to help. But yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll see how tomorrow goes.
Okay. Matt, we can go to your point.
Andre reminded me of this. Christopher had some concerns that it looked like we weren't making any progress on this OKR despite doing all these fixes and having things behind feature flags. So what we tried last week, so we have to tune it a little bit, I think, but tried adding a number of like intermediate steps underneath this, saying like, oh, we did this work, this is behind a feature flag, whatever, which makes so they can see that we're actually working on this. It's not like we forgot about it. So it makes it look like we've made progress at least on this a little bit. It's a little different than just saying, oh, we've met this 40% goal or whatever. So it's a little deceiving in that way, but I just wanted to let people know that I kind of changed that a little bit last night, or the end of last week while Andre was out, and it felt a little.
I appreciate it, Matt. I think there was no other way of revealing progress than the way that you did it.
Yeah.
I also feel conflicted that we worded the OKR very results oriented, and now we're showing progress in a way that it's still not felt on the results. We vocalize it, but I think it's useful to have the upper management up to speed that we are actively pursuing this. And so I think it fulfills its job.
Sure, that sounds good. One original idea was like, hey, just put, we're 10%, we've met 10% of our performance, and then 20, and then like have a KR for each percentage and then mark those off. That sounds really bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
But I think it's a lesson for our future OKRs. Although I do like OKRs based on results, it is important for us to be cognizant about how I'm going to score this intermediately in the middle of things.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's a little different this time too, because there's a lot more visibility, I think, and we're expected to update them more frequently now. Before it was like maybe once a month, or just at the end of the quarter, I'll give it a score and we'll say where we were, and which wasn't very transparent, I admit.
Yeah.
But, this is probably a shift in the right direction, but it's going to change how we think about OKRs a little bit.
Right. So while we're on the subject, and it's the last point of the agenda, and we have 15 minutes or 10 minutes, how's our gut feel for the OKR? How are we feeling? Are we behind? Are we on track? Not technically, but the gut feel that we have, given the research we've done, the investigation that we've seen. I'll voice my position after you voice yours.
Are you asking me specifically?
You, Kai, the ICs on this, and yeah. Do you have an opinion? Spare the words, Sky. You can't speak much.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
trying to. I think, and I'm okay with it. I think we were way more ambitious than we probably should have been, given what we knew going into this, and then sort of what our goals were.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that I expect us to tremendously, and not because I don't think we'll ship things that'll be improvements, but I expect us to pretty much fail the OKR, and I'm okay with that. I think it proves a couple points, and one is that sort of the last minute planning and trying to drive work via OKRs is not useful, because it forces work into this weird time box that doesn't align up with how milestones work anyways, and takes time to plan work that you're actually going to go do and deliver when you want big efforts. And so I think that's okay. We've tested the hey, let's just throw an OKR or something we weren't even thinking about on the board and see if it works, and it didn't. I don't think it will. And then I think the other thing that it does is it sort of shows how complicated this area of the product is, and how challenging it is to get these performance gains. And so when people, we have engineers who have worked in code review for years who can't find 200 milliseconds to save their lives, and I think that's fine. I think what people often think is they're oh, well, let's just get more engineers, let's throw more people at it. And I think I think this also sort of helps prove that this is just a really complicated area, and it just takes more time. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think we're going to hit the goal, but I'm okay with that. I think we will have learned a lot, and I think we'll get some gains out of it. So
yeah, and I'll add just that we even went further than our teams, and the ideas we got from the rest of the team, the front end team, wider, they were very overlapping with the ones we already had and one of the ones we're already pursuing. So it feels like if we're missing something, it's definitely not obvious, and it's a lot of nitty gritty, low level work that we have to do. But yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I think, what Kai was saying, we basically needed, a few milestones just to plan the work before we could really start on it, and we didn't have that time. So I feel like, at least from the back end side, most of the stuff we did in 14.0 was, okay, we have to do this investigation first, and then we'll see what we can get in 14.1. And like Kai was saying, that's it. That's all we get. Hopefully
we only get
one milestone of investigation and one of implementation, and then that's the whole quarter of because of how they don't align. So
yeah,
that's a little frustrating, because I feel like there's probably are more performance improvements we can make, and if we continue down this path, I'm sure we'll find more. But we kind of had to do this balance of, or this trade-off of, what can we get done quickly versus let's step back and really think about this, and what's the long-term approach for how we can make this faster. We didn't really have that luxury, so it was just, okay, we don't have time to really think about this. What are the one or two things we can do right now to improve performance, which is also useful, but not possibly won't get us the performance gains that we could get otherwise.
Yeah, thanks. I think my position overlaps a lot with what both of you said. I think the learnings we get from here will probably, and yeah, this is what we are able to do with tasks that fit a milestone or two milestones at most. But it might give us enough familiarity with the problem to now start planning more long-term projects that might last more than a milestone, more than a quarter. And I think the whole team is ramping up their knowledge and comfort in this topic. I think we will, again, like I was saying, we will get some gains out of it, and I think the gains will be more significant if we didn't have the space to focus this much attention on this problem. So I think it is very positive in terms of a collective focus on the whole thing. And even though some efforts are like we've seen with the virtual scrolling, I think if we had the normal cadence of other topics in flight, it would be very hard to even get where we are today. So I think it's still, because even though the code might not be a lot, the exploration and the experimentation and the testing do take a lot of capacity out of things. But I'm looking forward to some ideas that we have floating around for 14.1. So I'm again, it's going to be the not do or die, but a very decisive milestone for us. And I think we're all stepping up to it, and it's going to be a fantastic milestone. So let's put our backs into it.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to add too was having pretty much everyone focused on this one goal has been nice. I mean, I think it's let everyone kind of work together in a new way, which is great. So I think that whether or not we meet some specific number goal, it's been nice to have everyone kind of coalesce around one goal and focus in one area instead of kind of being spread out a little bit more.
Definitely not something to do like at the cost of all the other topics often, because we do miss pushing other things forward, like the reviewers. We know that there's some work that is left to be done. So we do feel like we want to go close that gap too for the future OKRs. But yeah, I get your point. Any more thoughts, ideas?
I'll just say I shared in chat that despite like an OKR this quarter, performance will continue to be a thing that we work on beyond the quarter and beyond the OKR, probably until we hit the goal that we've defined for ourselves. But maybe we'll slide in some other work at the same time. But it'll continue to be a thing that we care about.
Awesome, great to hear it, and we are definitely invested in that. So thanks. All right, any more topics?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. Right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your weeks. It's good to have you back, Andre.
Yeah, thanks. Great to have everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.